All right, I know it's quite warm. This will be comparatively short, so that is good. So if you're new here or you haven't been here many times, I'm John. I'm the leader of the church. I'm going on holiday. When I come back, I want this to look pretty similar to what it looks like now. Is that okay? I'm trusting you not to break anything. So this is a new series, and we are considering some of the ways in which we typically try to avoid the call of God, despite largely being people who seek to follow God. For example, by playing it safe or by settling for being nice. And Matt has devised a few other titles. Mine is Assuming That God Won't Show Up. And I'm tempted to recount what happened when we began the building project here in around the year 2000 or shortly before then. It was a massive deal. We repainted this completely, put in a new floor, put in the basement below. It cost about 3.8 million then, and basically it took about 2 years. So it was a huge thing, very daunting. And I actually had no idea what I was getting into when we started. Original estimates were $750,000. If anybody had told me it would cost 3.8 million, I would have said no. But by the time I'd been going for a while, there was no saying no, because you can't just leave a big hole in the middle of Westminster. Anyway, so an archdeacon introduced me to somebody high up in the Church of England, and he explained what I was about to do. And he said, "Do you have any advice for John as he starts this project?" And he said to me, "Yes, don't proceed by faith." Now, this did not sound great then, and it has not aged well. And what he probably meant was, don't be super spiritual. He probably meant, as well as being spiritual, be wise and practical. However, we surely should begin a project we believe God is in on the basis of faith. So let me read this passage, which is apparently about assuming that nothing will happen. And it is, Russell, the passage that you read a bit from earlier on in your usual prophetic way. Luke chapter 5. One day, as Jesus was standing by the lake of Gennesaret, the people were crowding around him and listening to the word of God. He saw at the water's edge 2 boats, left there by the fishermen who were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little from the shore. Then he sat down, taught the people from the boat. When he'd finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water. Let down the nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we've worked all night, and we haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets." When they'd done so, they caught such a honkingly large number of fish that the nets began to break. That's what it says in the Greek. So they signaled to their partners in other boats to come and help them. And they came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' feet and said, "Go away from me, Lord, because I am a sinful man." For he and all his companions were astonished at the catch of fish they'd taken. And so were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, Simon's partners. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on you will fish for people." So they pulled their boats up on the shore. They left everything and they followed him. Now, it is Matt that cleverly designed this and every other series that we go through in the church. And in characteristic style, Matt has decided in his infinite wisdom that this account shows us someone who assumes that God will not show up. And in this, he is sadly mistaken. On the contrary, this account is probably chosen to illustrate that Simon Peter had an unusual capacity for spiritual insight right from the start. He is the one who's willing to give fishing another go, although he's worked all night, simply because Jesus tells him to. After the huge catch of fish, he is the one who discerns immediately that there is something very different about Jesus, and he falls to his knees and confesses that he's a sinful man. This is not a bad initial faith start, Matt. It may be that for this reason, Jesus is about to choose him. amongst his first disciples. Simon will then go on to be the one who has a go at walking on water. Ever had a go at that? No. And he will be the first to discern that this is the Christ, the Son of the living God. However, this is not how Matt, in his infinite wisdom, reads this passage. He believes that Simon does not believe that anything will happen if he goes out on the lake one more time. And he discerns cynicism in Simon's response. Well, if you say so, versus nascent faith. Well, if you, who I've just heard teaching incredible things, say so, then I will do it. But Matt can be a bit of a Debbie Nelly, as we call those who are more negative about Arsenal's chances on our WhatsApp group. But, because I'm that kind of guy, let's roll with it. Simon is after all a fisherman, and Jesus is either a carpenter or a rabbi, depending on who you talk to. And rabbis and carpenters know much about fishing, as Simon knows about whittling or rabbinical exegesis. As a person who's returned to the family trade, fishing, Simon was not academically gifted enough to continue with education, which was basically conducted by a rabbi who called you, if you were talented, to come follow me. He obviously wasn't of that kind of intellectual caliber. And so his family did not do carpentry, they did fishing. He may have been a simple man, but he was a simple fisherman. And put simply, he knows a heck of a lot more about fishing than any carpenter stroke rabbi. To start with, there is a reason why fishermen fish at night. Do you know why it is? It's because it's easier to catch fish at night. Fish do their shopping, they go to work, they play with their kids, they have to sleep during the day. During the night, they're available to be caught. All fishermen know this. Okay, that's not true. So let's pretend that this passage is about the assumption that God will not show up. Now, if it was about that, it would actually be about your biggest problem and mine. This would be a passage addressing the biggest problem you've got right now and also the biggest problem I've got right now, which is the assumption that we know better than God, especially where we consider ourselves to be proficient, talented, gifted. This is effectively the age-old battle played out in the life of every person who wants to be spiritual. Am I going to do it my way, or am I going to trust in the Lord? And in areas where we are particularly vulnerable, in areas of brokenness, in areas of real challenge, this is a very real question. And so it's about your biggest problem, so it's extremely relevant. Thank you, Matt, for choosing this. Now, I am absolutely confident, because I know a lot of you, that there are decisions that you make and decisions that I make about things where we genuinely do display faith and we do rely on God. I just want to tell a personal instance, if you don't mind. I'm used to being directed by God in a situation like this, in a service. And I'm used to acting on that direction, and you will have seen me do that. Now, initially, I found that whole thing very stressful, especially because I didn't actually realize God was speaking to me. But nowadays, I'm comfortable with being directed, with trusting that my thoughts, my impressions, my intuitions that come to me in a time like this, might come to me when I'm worshiping or whatever, sitting at the back there, may well be from God. Now, I repeat to myself that they probably are, bearing in mind that they might not be. Right? So you never know whether it's God. You believe it's God, you never know. But it's better to presume it probably is, always bearing in mind that it might not be. And that influences not whether you act on it, it influences how you act on it, how you express yourself. So it's always good to say, I believe God may be saying, perhaps God is saying, as opposed to, thus saith the Lord, and giving people no room out of your absolutism. However, there are other areas of my life where I'm not sure, if you observed me in action, whether you'd think I was familiar with God's ways at all. One way in which I've regularly experienced spiritual opposition is through distraction. Another way, and actually the first thing that used to happen was building works. So I lived in a little street in Oxford. They dug it up 3 times in the 1 year I lived there. When we moved into Gloucester Place, they renovated the flat above, the flat below, and every single flat opposite. Right now, our neighbors are having a complete basement removal, which will take a year. This has been a common feature for me, living next to what was completely normal and became a building site. But there have been other forms of distraction as well. Recently, we went through a phase where an abnormal lot of things went wrong in the rough and tumble of everyday life. At the same time, leading to high levels of stress. For example, we went to the States and the airline lost my wife's bag. When we came back from the States, I left my glasses in the airline cabin, my hand luggage on the Heathrow Express, and I took somebody else's case back from Heathrow because I was ill. When we were on holiday in France a couple of weeks ago, the electrics at home failed in the kitchen. The first electrician said he couldn't find a problem, everything's fine. Then it all went again. The second electrician said, it's your hugely expensive fridge freezer, which came with the house, £2,500. Meanwhile, nobody could get the dog into the house for 3 days. It got completely freaked out by the fact they didn't know anybody was trying to look after him, leading to 10 days with no fridge when we came back and doggy garden camping. And there were several other things I won't bore you with as well. The point is not that poor John suffers more hassles than anybody else because he's such a spiritual giant. It is that when things of this kind happen, I tend to respond by leaping into action. I do not like them. I want to end them. I want to control this distraction that's getting in the way and stopping me praying. And I forget to pray, and I get angrier and more stressed as things take one turn after another that doesn't resolve them before I'm in such a mess. And every time somebody talks to me, I tell them all about it. Some of you have probably heard about it. Passages like, don't be anxious about anything, don't make any difference to me, because I don't spend any time thinking about them. I'm too busy trying to get somebody to pick up a phone, or whatever it is. Put a lead on a dog. So, the same person who might appear to be quite spiritual one moment can appear to be not at all spiritual the next. And this issue is not especially mine, it is also flipping yours and mine. We share this issue. There are areas where we float along serene like a spiritual swan on whatever waters are beneath us, and there are other times when we are basically drowning in our own water. Doing it my way versus trusting in the Lord, especially in areas of expertise, but equally in areas of brokenness personal to us. Anyway, enough about me. Let's focus on Sam for a bit. He's visiting us this evening from a church he leads down on the coast, and he got to know Dave and Kira. Welcome back, Dave. Could we just give him a round of applause? Could you just join me for... Dave, focus. Come and join me. Come and join me. Don't just sit there. Come and join me. Yeah, you. So this is Dave. Now, Dave was a kind of superstar of the church. He put together many of the carol services, worked on the staff team, directed the worship, was in the band for years. He's done all kinds of things. He was a fantastic person to have on the team. Dave, so you left us, which was really selfish, and I wanted to say this publicly to you. No, you left us, no. And basically, it was initially quite difficult to find a place church-wise, was it not?
Yes.
Never worked with animals or children or Manchester United supporters. So, Dave, let's try for a little more. So recently you've got involved in Sam's church, and he's kind of opened the doors to you and Kira leading worship. What's that been like?
Yeah, Sam has been amazing. I mean, this is, we've turned up to a different context, a more traditional expression of church, which isn't has never been our thing, but we felt God calling us to do local church, having gone around to sort of the local and wider area, trying to find the thing where we fit. And I would have said we don't normally fit in this sort of space, but God has been very clear, and a number of things all in an order. And we are in West Wittering, down by the beach. Sam is director there, covering a few churches, and has he just took a bit of a risk. He knows our context, what we've been involved in here. Kira leading worship, it's my wife, and offered for us to try an evening a worship evening, and I'll be honest, I just jumped to the St. Mary's playbook, as I sort of know. We've called it Soak, as we have done here. I don't know if you guys still do Soak.
There are no other names possible.
Okay. I'm sure we'll, pay you some royalties of some sort. I'm not sure how that works. But basically, we put this on, took a risk. Didn't know who was going to turn up. We did it in a local church, it's an old stone building, and the room was full, and we had like 65 people to the first one, and people just went for it, and it was amazing. And we don't really have many musicians at church, so sort of clawing from other churches that people we sort of know, like, hey, can you come join us in this thing? We need some help. Anyway, we've done a couple now, and the church has been full, and people are just being really open to the Holy Spirit. And from the first song, not much of a warm up. They've just gone for it, and we've just been like the Holy Spirit has just completely drenched us in that space, and it's really exciting.
Dave, thank you. That's perfect. Appreciate your participation. So they met Sam, newly appointed leader, and because he'd released them to do their worship leading thing, the Spirit is moving on these occasions, and they're trying to work out how to carry things forward. But Sam has a problem, actually quite a common problem, and one that everybody really has to face, which is that he's uncertain how to lead ministry himself. So he'll say, we get 90% of the way there, but then... And so what he's come to do is to watch me lead ministry this evening, as though that's going to answer the question. He didn't know he'd be playing a starring role this evening in this talk, but it will be okay, mate. So first, we need to know some important things about Sam, and I've asked a couple who know him well to tell us about those things. So Alex and Hannah Rivka, could you come and join me wherever you are? Just you? Good.
Hello. So Sam and I met, I think, almost 16 years ago, and we were at a church together. And I think there were three things that came to mind when I was thinking about this that felt reflected what Sam is like. So the first, I felt like very creative, very gracious, and a true leader. So on being creative, so very talented worship leader, very releasing and freeing and encouraging other people to use their gifts, being able to be bold and going where he felt like the Spirit was leading, being in a context to take different groups of people, different abilities, different talents, and be able to draw people together. I saw that as a huge creative gift. Wrote some fantastic worship songs, and I hope you still do. And if you don't, that is absolutely something you should still be doing, because that was absolutely very powerful. The second thing, just very gracious, just very kind, just very, very kind, full of grace, full of kindness to other people, and made a massive difference to me. I was quite young at the time. I was about 18, 19, 20, something like that. And I remember Sam just being just very, very kind. Very, very kind. One of the ways he was very kind was he took a very average worship song that I wrote. And I remember this because I remember thinking that this was very average. But he had encouraged me that it's good to write music. And so I thought, well, I'll give a go at doing that. It was very average. And we met... I don't know whether you remember this, but we met. I actually was trying to find. I've got it printed out somewhere, and I was trying to find. I couldn't find it. Anyway, we met, and you said, okay, you just listen to that. Listen to me play it. I played it, and if I was Sam, I would have gone, holy moly! Thank you very much. Okay, let's go. He didn't. The response was this. Okay, great. Well, let's lean into this. Let's do more of that. Okay, let's shift this around. Let's change the rhythm there. Let's change the tempo. Let's increase. Let's put it up higher. It's too low. Let's put it higher. And what I took from that was that's someone who sees potential, and then breathes life into it to make something average actually really quite exciting. And I think that is someone that's not just about creativity. That's not just about grace. That's about being a leader.
Thank you. Thank you. So some very important things to know about Sam. It's very interesting. He's a man who really knows how to lead worship. He's a man who really knows how to write good songs, both activities of the Spirit. You can't do these things to the level that he's done them without being filled with the Spirit. But this same man feels less certain when it comes to another activity of the same Spirit, which is leading ministry in his church. We get 90% of the way there, but then not sure what to do. Now, Sam has been fully exposed to the model of ministry that we know, but there's at least one problem. In his spiritual tradition, the worship leader led the worship, and they never led the ministry. Somebody else led the ministry. And so he hits a wall. And I think this is very common in our experience with the Spirit. And it reveals the same old issue at play. I'm comfortable with worship leading, I'm comfortable with songwriting, they're like fishing to me. But I have no frame of reference for leading ministry. This is a bit more like walking on water, though I've seen it. And in part, this does just go to show that the first cut is the deepest. Whatever we initially learn about God and church, we tend to continually apply unless we seek to grow and change where necessary. And I've seen really good people hit other walls. For example, there was an incredible female leader in this church for many years, and she would always say to me, I can't hear God speak. I know other people do. I've received words from God, but God does not speak to me. I don't have words of knowledge. Now she has words of knowledge. She also could not preach from the stage because it terrified her. He had serious dyslexia. And basically now she speaks every week, and she's brilliant. But there was a wall, and she had to get past the wall. In fact, women often find that there is a wall about speaking in public because they endure the double judgment of both men and women in church. And I've seen that again and again. 2 other women I can think of who now preach regularly and are brilliant at it could not bring themselves to do it while they were here. And I had to give up on pushing them because it seemed to be too painful. The wall. It's common. There's always a reason. One challenge for any church leader is to ensure that their services are actually led by the Spirit. Services can be led with such professionalism that the work of the Spirit is not actually strictly necessary. Indeed, if the Spirit did not exist, many church services would continue completely unaffected. We opened the doors the other day in the morning service. We had a pathetically small number of people there. It was the beginning of the heat wave. It was the holidays, and I was embarrassed. And we opened the doors, and basically Russell was leading the worship, and 3 women came in at the back there where Nicholas is. One of them starts crying, and 20 minutes later, she's still crying. They can't leave because she's so moved, and the friends don't know what's going on, but she is weeping and weeping. Another mother comes in with her kid, and basically she can't stop crying either. That's the work of the Spirit. That's the kind of mesh you need to show that God is actually directing the thing, not you, and not anybody else. So this is what I said to Sam when we spoke on the phone, not on the phone, on more modern form of technology. And I'm going to repeat it in everybody's hearing, Sam, because it's all you ever really need to know, and it's really all that anybody ever needs to know. Ready? You can get this in the form of a tattoo. God is nice, He likes you, and He wants to use you. God is nice, He likes you, and He wants to use you. This is the foundation of all ministry. But there are other things that we could say of a more practical nature that might help, and I thought it would be interesting to hear from some people who lead ministry, and perhaps especially, Matt, if you began not as a leader of ministry, but as a worship leader. So if you could begin, then Kirstine and Serena are going to say something. This might be interesting too. I mean, it probably won't be as interesting as what I said, but you never know.
So I made a similar journey from worship leader and then speaking and service leading and becoming a church leader as well. I think I learned the most about preaching and leading when I first led worship with you on a life weekend away when I was about 19 years old. And you were very hands-off. not from everything that was going on. You were hands-on in the ministry time and said, Matt, look after this. And that felt quite stretching in the moment. And part of the training is basically like what Serene would teach any one of us on the ministry training about just saying what you see. Say what you see. So just as I would pray for somebody down here, I'm playing the songs in precisely the same way. And so I'm looking out and I'm seeing God moving and I go, oh, that looks like that. I'm going to say what I see. And that sort of built confidence as I grew in both the worship leading gift and also the leading gift as well. And on my personal story, part of my journey as a church leader and as a minister in all these sorts of areas has been I've had more of an emotional intelligence deficit when I started. I had to work at expanding my emotional band, to have the emotional intelligence to see what's happening with people. And I think as I've made that journey, my worship leading improved because it's not just singing songs one after another and sort of hoping for the best or just picking the best bits. It's about responding, and it's a to and fro. And it's the same with the service leading, and it's the same with the speaking as well. So for me, it's saying what you see and stretching that emotional band.
Thank you, Steen. Welcome back, by the way. It's been years. How was this morning?
Oh, guys, this morning was so good. It was my first official Sunday. Sam, I'm a bit like you. I've gone off, left this place, and I've gone to a more liturgical setting. And God bless them. It was very lovely to see some familiar faces. At the end of what is a very dry service, a long-time member of the church we've been praying for, she's really unwell, came up to me and said, could you pray with me at the end? And I was like, oh my gosh, it's the first time someone's asked me this. Is so exciting. So I was like, yeah, come on, let's go and pray. So I said, do you mind if I put my hand on the shoulder? And I asked her what was going on, and she said, I've been given the total clearance. It's medically impossible what's just happened. And so as I prayed for her and invited the Spirit, she starts weeping. And as I say to her, I just think God is restoring your hope. She said, I feel like I can live for the first time ever. And I said, hey, how about we share this in church in a couple of weeks and we say to our church, you guys have prayed for this with honestly very little expectation God is going to do something. And she's been completely healed of her complete condition. So that's how we started this morning, which is a lot of fun and builds my faith. Sam, I think the thing when I was thinking about you is I felt God say, you do know this. You do know what to do in that next part of it. And so be bold and courageous and take the risk. Do not fear the mess. And it's okay. We're never going to get it right 100% of the time, buddy. But it is so much more fun when we take the risk. And the more you do it, and the more you speak out what you think God's doing, the more you track the activity, the more you see the signs, the more you will learn to listen to your innermost spin and your gut. And it's like, I felt God say, you do have a gut instinct. And when I was praying for you, particularly this week, I felt God say that over that church is an open heaven. And you can see what God is going to do. And that sense that you have of what might happen in that area will come to pass. And you just need to be bold and courageous and do not listen to the voice that says don't do it. Do not listen to the voice of the past. And I particularly felt God say that he's going to redeem the stuff of the past. And the ways in which maybe you are doubting is a fear over what happened before. And I felt God say, you do not need to fear because he's the one in charge and you're simply looking to work with him. So it's not about you. So don't worry about the mess. Like Matt said, just simply say what you see God doing and embrace the fun. I think the best bit of advice I was given when I started out was go where the activity is. So ignore where the activity is not happening. Go into the crux and the real deep part where you see the ministry falling out. And you will love working with Kieran and Dave. They are phenomenal. So use them for everything they're blimmin' worth.
Thank you, Serene.
I think for me, that's what John said, just keep on doing it. Do it every Sunday. It doesn't matter if one person comes, no one comes. Just keep on doing it. And yes, sometimes, or for me, when I first started, I first ran out when it comes to ministry training because I was too scared. But we do it and we feel like we die of ourselves. We are dying doing it. And it's like, oh my gosh, God. But it's a good death because you bring life and you're going to see so much life, is on that carpet. I always say it's death and life. And yes, we die of ourselves. But then we hear all of this testimony, hearing the testimonies. And I used to lead students for 3 years. And that group of students, I love them to death. But they were not the most open to the Spirit. They were some were non-Christian, some were experienced the Spirit and experienced all of this stuff, so then really shut down. And it was a tough gig. Week in and week out, I keep on offering them at the end of the service ministry. They would sit down, chat, it doesn't matter, week in and week out. Now, we've seen some fruit. Some got baptized, it was amazing, and they got open by the end. But I think John and Kirsten went to Nashville, and that girl went to America. But apparently now she's on fire. She wants to do a church and she wants to do the Holy Spirit. And I was like, are you kidding me? That same girl, and I won't say that name. Because when she was my student, she was not the most open. She will criticize and stop. But I didn't get to see the full fruit. But now apparently she's so open to the Spirit that she wants to do it. Like, that was not, that years, like, you don't see it. And then a student that I wouldn't say was the most open, but because I've seen it for 3 years, he came back 2 years of not coming to St. Mary's. We needed a ministry team. He came and prayed for people, and he's questioning me, yeah, of course I haven't forgot how to pray for people, even if he hadn't done it for 2 years. And people, if you do it consistently, even if you don't see them, they catch it, and they will do it, and you will be, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're doing it after, the hard labor, but it's worth it. So keep on doing it.
Thank you. Paul, you got something?
I don't know you, Sam, and you don't know me. I'm not a leader here. I'm a punter. Okay, I'm a punter. That's how I came here. So, Sam, wherever you are, it's not about you. It's about me. You need to do ministry for me, because I came to this church in desperate need of the Holy Spirit, of healing and saving. And you need to do it for me.
Thank you. Okay, that's enough about Sam. How about you? How about everybody else? How about anybody else who's struggling with areas of trust when it comes to God? You know what? It could be sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It could be identity in Christ versus my former identity and all its brokenness, where I'm between two worlds. Which world am I actually in? The problem with Christianity is it can be like a really long walk, and sometimes you can think, I'm totally knackered, and this walk is burning me up, and I want to stop. In fact, I want to go back. The problem is then you look behind you and you realize you've walked so far that going back would also be long and knackering too. The most difficult place is when you've got one foot in one small fishing boat and one foot in the other, and they're not moored. It's just difficult. Could be family relationships. Could be work. Could be money. If I could see your life in all the most fragile areas, would there be enough evidence to convict you of being a Christian, especially in the areas of greatest need? If the answer is a no, join the club of which I am a fully paid up member and maybe the chairman. But do come forward for prayer, because that's the only hope. Would you like to stand?